Let's start again. Hello. How are you?
I like that little robot that
Yeah.
tells you things now.
It doesn't end up on the recording though. That's the sad part. Maybe I'll get Siri to reproduce that for me.
Oh, how are you doing?
Great. Nice to finally meet you sort of in real life, I guess, with
It's
an
the closest
animated face.
it's the closest we'll get for a while, I
Yeah,
suspect.
for sure, for sure. I think we just barely missed each other in 2019 in San Jose, right? I think you had just left.
Um,
Or you
2019 or
did
was
you
it
go?
2018? I was there 2018. I don't think I made it 2019, but
Okay.
honestly, what are years? I can't
Yeah, that's
remember.
true. No, I mean we did a pin exchange with an associate of yours. Actually, I think I gave
Ah,
you
that was it.
more than
Yes.
just code one, and I got one of your fabulous pins as well. So I think, yeah. What did I get from you? I can't remember.
It was probably in 2019, it would have been a Panda.
Maybe, yeah. It's over there in the closet where all my WWC pins are. So yeah,
Oh.
great to have you on the show. So where are you actually in the world right now?
So I'm in Glasgow in Scotland,
Okay,
which
cool.
is where I was born.
Nice.
And
Well, did you know I started grade one in Glasgow, in Irvine, actually?
no, I did not know that.
Yeah, my mother grew up in Irvine, and yeah, so we used to have a house down there. And on our way back from Asia, we stopped in Scotland for 6 months while my dad came to Canada to start the new life. And yeah, so I started grade. I did nursery school in, I think it was, I don't know if it was in London or whatever, or England somewhere. And then because I was born in St. Albans in near London, right? And
Mhm.
but yeah, on the way back, we stayed with my grandfather in Irvine, which is, I think it's a suburb of Glasgow, or it's sort
I
of
think it's
offshoot.
possibly just outside Glasgow. My knowledge is shaky. I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah, but it was a long, long time ago, obviously for me, right? I used to love going to school in England. But what can I say? It's different here in Canada. We didn't get. I don't know if when you were growing up, they had the little pint of milk they used to give you with the cream on top
Yeah, we
at
got
Reese.
things like that.
Yeah.
So Irvine, just for the record, is 26 miles south of Glasgow.
Just good to know. Good to
Not
know.
too far.
Cool. All right. Well, let me do the proper introduction here. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of More Than Just Code podcast. My name is Tim Mitra, and I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm more than thrilled to be joined by James Thomson in Glasgow, Scotland.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to actually talk to humans and see their faces.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And actually, you've been on quite a few podcasts. As I've caught you on a few from time to time as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've described myself as a podcaster, but I've
Right.
certainly done enough of them that, yeah, I think the one thing I don't have is my own show because that seems like a lot of work.
I think I've told this story before, but yeah, it is. I think about the third weekend, I went, "What have I done? What have I got my signed up for here?"
That's why being a guest is great because you get to turn up, do your bit, and then just leave, and then somebody else has to do all the editing and promotion and everything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm on a couple of podcasts with Tammy Coron, Roundabout Creative Chaos, and now we're doing one with Pragmatic Programmers. And yeah, that's exactly why I say yes, because she does make me do more of the work on the show, but still, it's nice to not have to do that. But that said, I've been editing the last 3 4 episodes of Pragmatic as well. So what can I,
Yeah.
it kind of becomes rote.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about James. As I always joke on the show that PCalc is the official calculator of More Than Just Code, and it is. I mean, I literally have it installed on my. I don't. Do I have it on my watch? I don't think I do. Yeah, no, I do have it on my watch, but I use it on my. It used to be one of my complications actually. Now I've changed it out. But anyway, yeah, I have it. I switched my iOS calculator over to PCalc, and I use it on my Mac, and I'm the conversion tool is just that's priceless. It's the best thing I find.
Well, I'm glad it's getting use.
Oh, definitely, for sure, for sure. Yeah, so tell me, let's talk about James and how you. I mean, I was just looking at one of your blogs here and how you got started in this whole development thing and how it's going.
I mean, I got started, well, it doesn't feel like that long ago, but it's like 30 odd years ago. Basically, yeah. I did a computer science degree at Glasgow University, in fact, and like I'd never used a Mac before that point, and I'd used an Atari ST.
And I get sort of a time check in terms of when you would have graduated.
So I graduated in '94.
Okay, all right, yeah.
And when I finally used a Mac, I realized that it had been the ST had been a complete rip-off of the user interface of the Mac, and B, how really well thought out it was and things like that. And it was kind of my favorite course was one on user interface design, which basically every lesson, they basically took an aspect of the Mac, like the open save panels or something like that, and just went through it in great detail. And like, it was all about, why decisions were made the way they were, and like what, the importance of user testing and all these kind of things. So that was a really great introduction into the sort of user interface design. And as part of that course, one of the things that I did, or one of the projects, was we had to design a central heating control panel in HyperCard.
Nice, yeah.
And so I, like being the overachiever that I am, I drew like a fake LCD font and like little buttons and stuff, and made it look as best as I could on a 1-bit Macintosh screen. And after that, I was trying to work out how to learn how to program the Mac. And I realized that I had this LCD fake font and these buttons. And I was like, I could put that together and I could make a calculator. And that was it. And that's where those graphics came from. And the first version came out December '92. And that was kind of the start of my programming career. So the first app I ever wrote is the one that I'm currently still writing. I have done other things along the way, but
yeah, for sure. Well, you did do drag thing was your thing back in the day? Yeah. I used to have that on my Macs, and definitely. I've used. I think I mean, I love the fact that I don't really use it, but I love the fact that I have PCalc on my Apple TV. And of course on my watch, and I think if you could put it on an AirTag, you probably would, right?
Yeah.
Or a HomePod.
It's a really good sort of way to learn a new thing. Like that's what I was doing with the first version, because I wanted to pick a kind of small project to get started with programming. And it's like when the iPhone came out, it's like, well, I've got a small, I've got the logic code, and I can port that over fairly easily. And let's see if I can write an iPhone interface around it. And so, it's the same as true. Like when there's an AR headset, you can guarantee that I will be porting my code onto it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's funny because I was teaching an iOS course in 2011, 2012, I guess all the way up to 2014. And calculator was one of the things we taught them. Because it's a great lesson, how to put a button on, how to make an outlet, and an IB action attached, like have the numbers act as the input, and the 4 calculations, basically the basic calculations, and then teaching them about not dividing by 0.
Always important.
Yeah, or you'll crash your app. Yeah, and then that's lots of fun. Cool. And but lately you've been, I guess, I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, but I get the idea that there's this dice concept, and you've been playing around with the dice on some of the apps you've been making lately.
So the genesis of that was rewind back like 4-5 years, and there was rumors then that Apple was going to do something in the AR space, like headset or whatever. And I wanted to learn 3D graphics programming. I'd done some at university, but computers were quite different back in like '94, and so I started playing around with 3D graphic stuff, and the PCalc's about screen grew out of that, and I was just sort of playing around, seeing what you could do with Apple's 3D engines. And I had then, I did that for a number of years, just sort of playing and learning stuff. And I started playing D&D with friends. There's a podcast, Total Party Kill, on the Incomparable, and played with like a number of people that people might know from the Mac world. Jason Snell, Mike Curley, people like that. And Jason made an offhand comment at one of those sessions saying, "I'm surprised you haven't made a dice app yet." And I thought, "Oh, right. how hard can that be?"
Yeah, because you'd already done the bananas at the Easter thing,
right? There were actually like your standard 6-sided dice where you could do them in the PCalc about screen as well. You could throw them around.
Right.
So I had already worked out sort of the basics of it, and I figured, yeah, I can use my knowledge of that, and I can make a dice app. So I gave myself a week, which was quite for somebody who's made like half a dozen apps in his entire career, this making a new app from scratch is something. And I thought, well, I'll give myself a week. It actually took me 2 weeks, but that wasn't bad. And I got it on the store from like hitting new project to like being ready for sale in 2 weeks. Of course, I didn't really stop there. And I've done a lot more to it since. I mean, financially, it's not like the best investment of my time, but in terms of learning, it really is, because there's a lot of stuff where it between both DICE and PCalc, if Apple comes out with a new technology and it's something that I want to explore, like AR stuff or whatever it is, I can often find a use for it, and I'll like experiment with stuff, but then I'll ship the experiments,
Right. So do you, like, as we moved from Objective-C to Swift and now to Swift UI, do you roll bits and pieces into your apps that way, or?
Yeah, it's like, so in DICE, the preferences window and the widgets are all Swift UI. It's mostly Objective-C in the apps, because like PCalc has been around for a long time, and it generally doesn't make sense to rewrite an app from scratch. But if there's new stuff, I'll try and do that in Swift or some in Swift UI. And yeah, going forward, I'd probably focus more on Swift UI and things like that. But I mean, that's like DICE I used as an experiment for Catalyst to see what the current state of the art was in like using your iPhone code and running that on the Mac, as a way to look at what would it be like in the future if that was a way that I would do PCalc and things like that. So it's all about sort of experimenting and learning, and hopefully coming up with something that's also fun for people to use.
Sure.
And the DICE thing is also, I would say, like, I started the 3D about screen stuff in PCalc in 2016, which was politically an interesting year, I think we could say. And I've been doing a lot of DICE stuff over the last 18 months, which has also been somewhat of an interesting time period. It's kind of a mental health thing. It's like, it's fun to work on stuff like 3D graphics and things. So it's an outlet for creativity in a way that kind of like just sort of cheers me up a bit.
Right. Yeah. I've got a 3D printer over my shoulder here that I've been playing around with, making bits and pieces for my house, like fixing the air conditioning. I fixed a Roomba by making a gear for it, and
yeah,
I make my own toys, right?
Yeah, and it's like, if I've got half an hour, and I just want to like chill out or do something, I could design another set of like virtual dice that go in the app, and there's a little creative project by itself. And yeah, I mean, all of this stuff is about. I mean, yes, it's about making a living, and that's why I sell the apps. But it's also about trying to learn and do stuff that's fun and kind of try not to burn out too much, I guess.
Right. So let's talk about the business side. So are you what you would consider a truly independent indie developer? Or are you
I mean,
surviving?
it's like the company, it's myself and my wife, and we've been doing it, like the company's existed since 97. And yeah, I mean, it's pays our salaries and keeps the lights on. So, you know, it's not like retiring money, but it's, you know, it's a good living, and I've definitely got no complaints on that front.
Sure. So like in the 90s when you were doing things like, did you have like, I know you had Drag Thing, but did you have any other products like that you were developing at the time? And what was the financial landscape like for a developer back in those days?
So Drag Thing came out, I think it was 95. And shortly after that, in 96, I worked for Apple for 4 years. So that was kind of like what kept me busy
right
in that time.
Yeah.
And I was working on the Mac OS X dock, partially because of my work on Drag Thing. And after I left Apple, and I should state that none of my code actually shipped. I worked on the thing for like nearly 2 years, and none of my code shipped, but that's another story. Anyway, after that, I went back to working on Drag Thing, and Drag Thing was really the sort of major financial thing. And PCalc was kind of had lain dormant for a while. You know, I'd come back to it every now and again when I was trying to learn something new. But Drag Thing, you know, bought the house or the flat that I'm currently living in.
Really? Wow. Yeah.
And it did very well. And I mean, at that point, I was selling it at $29 because back then, you know, the market was not quite the race to the bottom, you know, everything's free.
Definitely, yeah.
So, you know, because I was selling for a decent amount, we did very well out of it. And, you know, that I think Drag Thing naturally came to the end of its life because, well, I mean, it came to its end of its life because it was written in Carbon. I wasn't going to rewrite it. And then Apple killed all the Carbon stuff when Catalina came around. But even then, it had been on a sort of downward slope for a while. And as it was going down, when I did the iPhone version of PCalc, it sold extremely well. And so it was on the up. So that's kind of where my time went, just because it was clear that that was going to be the driver of income. And now still, like the iPhone version is probably, well, iPhone iOS version is probably like 80% of our revenue or something.
Wow, that's interesting.
And the Mac version is probably, you know, 10-15%. The rest of it's probably Dice. You know, as I say, Dice is not like the financially wise thing to spend time on, or even if it's the fun thing to spend time on. But yeah, I mean, it's doing well. I mean, I think like our sales have been down, I think, a bit since the pandemic, because I mean, I think everybody's in a more difficult situations than they were, so that's kind of not surprising. But it's certainly enough to live on, and you know, that's all I think you really need is enough. You know, I never want to be the person who's like trying to make money at any cost, if you see what I mean. I just need to like make enough that we can live and get on with life.
Yeah, be comfortable. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kudos to you. I mean, that you know, I suffered through. We had a couple of good years when we first got into iOS development specifically, because I had pivoted over from managed services and Mac support and stuff like that. But yeah, and then 2015 was when the bottom sort of fell out. You know,
yeah,
for everybody, I think. You know, Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I'm curious too about, like, because I do talk about the shareware days with the kids on the show, because they don't remember those days when we had retail boxes. But I mean, was Drag Thing and PCalc, did you make floppies and put them in cardboard boxes and ship them around the world, or?
No, I think like when I started, like PCalc was 92, so that was pre-web.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and that was mainly, it would be uploaded onto the InfoMac archives, and Tidbits was still going then, and or still going now. But that you could get the word out pretty well on stuff, and there were some points where it looked like we might get a box copy or in Japan, or some strange deals would be made, but that never really came to anything. And Apple kind of like tries to suggest that people could only sell software over the internet once the app stores came along.
Right.
But we were doing it. Well,
many years before.
10 years back. And we used Kagi for the payment processing.
Right. Yeah.
Things like that. So, I don't know if we were ahead of our time, but it was kind of, it always seemed archaic to have like physical things that you shipped around the world.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much, I think, in my experience was, getting third-party things, as we call it, shareware, that kind of stuff. For me, it was a little bit of floppy disks, but a lot of times, I think 93 was when eWorld sort of came around, and that's when I jumped on the web and discovered things like Kagi, and bought software by downloading a DMG file, right? And running it, right? So, and once I discovered DMGs, I never went back to floppies, So.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, it was an interesting time, because I think it was a small market, but it was a very enthusiastic one.
Right. Yeah.
Because like the kids won't remember when Apple was this tiny company.
Right. Yeah.
Rather than like the biggest company in the world.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know what the size of the market was, but it was a kind of, felt like a nice, friendly environment to do software in. And like when I was doing Drag Thing, there was, I knew like half a dozen people who also worked on docs of some description. So yeah, it was a nice environment that we could share stuff. And even though you were kind of notionally competing with people, it was kind of like, it was the sort of the traditional rising tide lifts all boats thing. And
yes, right. I remember, like, as a consumer of apps at that point in time, I was like the lone Mac user in a company of PC users, and I remember thinking like it was kind of this connection to the people on the outside selling things on Apple, and making floppies for me to install apps and stuff like that, which was great.
Yeah, and after I graduated from uni, I worked as a sysadmin looking after Mac labs at the university that I went to, which also gave me a great chance to kind of learn more of my skills in coding and stuff. And so that was a really great start to my career. And Apple obviously was a really good environment and stuff as well to go from like just looking at the names of the people in the Finder About screen to actually getting to the point where you were about to put your own name in that thing is kind of a wild ride for 4 years, basically, from my first app to being there. And yeah, so I mean, I think I was extremely lucky of the time that I started in this, and I can't imagine really what it would be like to start fresh in the industry now, because the app stores have got millions of apps on them. Pretty much anything you can think of exists.
Yeah.
So, because PCalc has been around for nearly 30 years, people know it, people know me. And I think that helps, with sales. Because marketing, I've never been great at marketing. It's always like, because, I'm doing pretty much all the writing the code, designing things, the tech support. My wife does like all the money stuff and anything that involves sensible decisions, and I do all the not so sensible decisions.
She's the adult in the room, yeah. Okay.
Yes. And yeah, so it's been as I say, luck. I think I don't want to put it entirely down to luck, but I think a lot of it's luck and being in the right place at the right time and being around. Yeah. I mean, there's not many Mac apps still around that have been around that length of time. I mean, BB Edit is kind of,
for sure. Yeah.
And the likes of, I think Fetch is still around and all these people, but we're kind of like, I feel like I still remember when I was, the young upstart, and then somehow I've become like a, village elder.
Yeah, the old man on the hill. Yeah.
Yeah, as my beard slowly grays and the stripes come in at the sides. And,
I'm a little bit beyond you on that one, but yeah, it's funny, but the kids won't understand this until they're our age. But yeah, you don't feel any different, right?
No, absolutely not. And that's the thing that nobody tells you, is you still feel like you're, that 18-year-old or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was thinking this the other day, and this is, I don't know if this is a bleak thought or not, but it was just the realization of, like, when I was young, I thought a lifetime was like this tremendously long period of time. And now, just as I'm approaching 50, slightly a way to go, I realize that a lifetime isn't a long period of time at all. And it is just like, oh, is that, I think that's the kind of the shift in perspective that comes. And yeah, I mean, like, I'm constantly impressed by the sort of the young developers who are coming into the business and doing things, and like, just blowing everybody away with like things and iterating on apps. And it's an exciting business to be in, I think, still. But a difficult one, I mean, that's got to be said.
I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. I mean, like I graduated 10 years before you, and I graduated I remember when the Mac was announced on the radio, like, and seeing the commercials on TV. And I didn't see I'd seen an Apple at that point in time, but I didn't see a Mac till maybe 3 or 4 years after I graduated. But and thinking about, like, I've resurrected, it's an SC30 behind me here that I've put in a clear case, and got it back up and running. I washed the logic board in dish soap to wash off the spilled capacitors, right? And it runs now, and so I have a few older Macs, and I hook them up and I plug them in and I turn them on, and I'm like, now what do I do? There's no Ethernet port, there's no internet. All I can get in and out of it is a floppy disk, right? So
I have been getting emulators set up at various points in time, so like early 90s, late 90s, and so on. So I can put on them development tools of the period. And my source code of the period. So I can build PCalc 1.0.
Nice.
So if there's any bugs in it, I can go back. I could fix those bugs.
Now you know what to do, right? Well, I have a System 6 or 7 running on my iPad here, right? So through an emulator, and I've installed Photoshop 1 on it and gone through all that. That's a lot of fun. I was actually thinking about that because I found my Dave Mark book from, writing C on the Mac from the old Cold Warrior sample code, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, I wonder, can you still go back and write, stuff for Carbon or whatever, right?
I mean, you absolutely can. It's like I had Think Pascal installed, and I was using that. It's interesting because, like, we've come so far, and also it doesn't feel like we've come
far enough,
far at all.
It's
a strange feeling of, like, when you go back to a Mac that's 25 years old or more, approaching 30 years old, and it's like it's kind of the same. It's like menu bar and icons, and I think somebody who used a Mac in 1984, if you put them in front of like a current M1 Mac, they'd still be able to kind of figure it out.
Oh, for sure,
and it's that kind of like consistency that I enjoy. I mean, I'm certainly somebody who, like, if Apple makes some user interface change that I don't like, will complain about it and say, "Oh, it was much better back in the day," kind of thing.
Right. But these crazy kids and their Apple TV interface and wiggly icons.
But I think that's just that's something that I need to get over.
I think we've earned the right to be a little curmudgeonly, right?
A little. I mean, I think I'm sort of like I'm kind of mid curmudgeon. I haven't fully evolved into my final form, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, if it's not Scottish, it's crap.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I can't complain about that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I have another section of the show where I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but on Roundabout Creative Chaos, I had a wish list of guests that I would put on, and Tammy was meant to reach out to them, and you were always on my list of someone I wanted to talk to. So I'm really glad that you're here. And so we used to ask some questions on to sort of give people something to talk about. And if you're willing, I'd like to ask you some of these random questions. They're not fully random in that they're based on the work of Marcel Proust. In fact, I've gone back and poached some of the questions from him. So if you're happy, I'll hit you with them.
Sure, let's go for it.
All right. So the first one is, what is your motto?
Ooh. I guess professionally, my motto would be something like always be learning, because it's a way to keep your brain working and young.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's always new technologies and new things. And, it's like just looking at an iPad with a LiDAR sensor on it, and you're moving around and building a 3D map of a room and doing whatever with it. It's like, can't imagine that kind of thing 30 years ago. So yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, well, I'll go with that.
All right, cool. Who are your heroes in real life?
Ooh. That is I mean, I can talk about programming heroes. That's sure. Kind of like an easy one. The guy that kind of inspired me to learn how to program is a British game developer called Jeff Minter, who wrote games for like Commodore 64 and is still writing games now. And when I was kind of a kid and growing up and playing games, he had all these games that were really sort of unique and like stamped with his personality. And he always put his name in big letters on like the front. So it was like, hey, like a single person made this thing. And that kind of like, well, can I do that? And that was my, that was what genuinely got me into this business. And I've talked to him occasionally on Twitter and told him that, and I don't know that he was particularly impressed, but
Right.
But yeah, I would go with that from that perspective.
Okay, cool. Who are your favorite writers?
Now you could take that in a multitude of ways.
Yeah.
From a fiction point of view, as people who know me will know, Douglas Adams is extremely high on the list. There's a reason that there's a 42 on the icon.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And actually, Douglas was a beta tester for a drag thing. So
nice.
We regularly, well, semi-regularly at least, talked back and forth. And he would say things like, oh, could you add support for like this entirely different scripting language? And I was like, sure, yeah, I'll do that. No problem. And that's why there was frontier scripting support in drag thing. And I met him at WWDC once, and he was very kind and sort of, knew who I was and gave me his time. And,
nice. Yeah.
But I've loved his books, and similar Terry Pratchett, people like that. That's kind of like, whenever I try and write something, if I can channel, just like 10% of either of the two of them, I think I'm doing well.
Cool. All right. What's your most treasured possession?
Well, okay, hang on.
Good thing we're on video. Woo.
I don't know if this counts, but people of a certain age will recognize.
Right, yeah.
A Lego Galaxy Explorer circa 78, I think.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that is not my original from when I was a kid. I thought I had it, and I certainly had the little ones. And then I was going through my parents' attic trying to find all the pieces for these things. And I kept looking. I couldn't find the pieces. So I eventually ordered off eBay, basically, that set. And I built it. And I realized I'd never owned it in the first place. Like,
really?
It just didn't feel familiar. But I'd created this memory in my head that I'd owned that big ship. But yeah, I mean, I love those old classic space Lego sets. And I've got quite a few of my original childhood ones around. There's probably a better answer to that I should say something like my wedding ring or whatever, but I'm gonna go with that. Like,
well, it's funny because I think we might actually have some of those pieces. I recognize some of them because we've kept all the Lego from over the years when the kids are all grown up now, right? So we'll have to dig around. I'm sure they'll know whether they had that one for sure. But my co-host on Spotcast, Jonathan, is my stepson. Is his Lego. He'd probably remember if he had that one. For sure. So what is your favorite word?
See, these are getting harder and harder.
I think they're all hard.
My favorite word. I'm going to go with yes.
Oh, really?
Because I think that is, I've tried not to say no to things, along the way, whatever opportunities come along, just try it, go with it.
Sure.
And so, I think that's probably a too simplistic an answer for this, but yeah, I'll go with that.
All right. What's let's see. I got a pick list here. Where would you most like to live?
Here, definitely. Scotland. I love it. It's a lot more sensible than south of the border. I had the opportunity to move to California, and I didn't want to, so I didn't. I say opportunity, threat. One of the same. I like a lot of stuff about the Bay Area and stuff, but I I kind of like Scotland, and I grew up like my parents lived, about 5 minutes away in their first place, and I went to university like 2 minutes down the road. And I've been around, I've been to other places, but yeah, this is a nice place. The weather could be better, but uh, other than that,
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually earlier. So, what's the developer community like in Glasgow? And
the there is developer community, and like going back a while, we have there was a group, Mac Dev, which was like a Scottish developer group, and we met up quite a bit. Um, I think a lot of those people have kind of gone their separate ways, and some of them have ended up at Apple, some of them have ended up at other companies, and so we don't meet up quite as often as we used to. But I think the internet has kind of, I wouldn't say it's reduced the need for a local groups, but it's definitely made it a lot easier to be part of like a bigger group than just a sort of a lock to a particular geography.
yeah, I mean, the pandemic's obviously like we have a local Toronto area group that I used to go to, but yeah, it's kind of just become a very quiet Slack channel lately.
Yeah,
How's the pandemic affected you in your daily life? And
I mean, it's an interesting thing because like we've been working from home for 20 years, so that
right,
wasn't
yeah,
new,
right,
and we have nice office setups and all that. Uh, so that didn't change. It was just everything else outside these four walls changed. Um, I and it's been difficult, and it's been difficult for everyone. I'm extremely lucky because my job could keep going the way it was, and we're still making a decent income. And a lot of people haven't been in that situation. We have people in the building, like there's a lot of medics live in this building, and like there's a woman above me who has worked on COVID front lines, and it just reminds you of how lucky you are to have a job that is, I, is I don't want to say it's easy, because there have been a lot of challenges over the last 18 months, just in terms of mental health and trying to keep working and keep doing stuff. And, you know, I've had a bunch of health issues and stuff which haven't really helped. And, lots of people have. Um, but, we've been doing okay. Like, we've not, like, we go around to my parents once a week and bring them shopping and stuff like that. And we've been doing that since the start. We're not seeing too many people face to face, and we're not seeing people inside. Even though we're both twice vaccinated at this point, there's still a certain hesitancy, I think, just in kind of getting, I mean, like all the restrictions got lifted on Monday here, like other than masks in shops and on public transport. And so all the pubs and things are now, in full swing. And I don't feel a particular draw to go into any of those situations right now. It's difficult. I mean, I don't know. People say, oh, it's post-pandemic. And I'm like, nah, it really isn't. We're mid-pandemic. Let's see how things go before, But you've got to do your best and try and. I've had a lot more reliance on online communications, Zooms and FaceTimes and things like that, and I think that's helped a lot. And recording podcasts as well. You've got a regular
for sure. Yeah,
talking to people.
Yeah, well, we started using Zoom about 2-3 years before the pandemic came along. So, but yeah, it's nice. All right, next question. Who's your favorite hero of fiction?
Hero of fiction. I mean, this is just repeating my previous answer, but it's got to be Arthur Dent from Hitchhikers.
I was going to say, I was afraid to answer the question, but
I mean, I just love that sort of every man in his dressing gown, just kind of like going through all these big adventures and just wanting a decent cup of tea. You know, I can relate.
So, what did you think of the Hollywood version of Hitchhiker's Guide?
I've seen it once. I didn't particularly like it. I know I should go back and watch it again with like the decade plus of difference from it. God, it's probably more like 2 decades now. I don't want to think about that. Because I think Douglas died like 20 years ago or something.
Has it been that long?
I don't know. I don't want to say that without actually looking that up. But
yeah, I quote him all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, he died May 2001. So
wow,
it's more than 20 years because I don't think he saw the iPod even. You know?
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I was due to meet him at a WWDC, and we talked about it like weeks before, and he died like just before the WWDC, and that hit me like no other kind of celebrity death really had. I think Steve Jobs to a certain extent as well, but Douglas, it was just strange because we had been talking, and we were like, I had said something about, meeting up and saying hello. And yeah, so that was
that's sad.
One of those things.
Well, I quote him all the time. I love the line about technology, that we're surrounded by all this technology. We just want things that work.
I think
like the internet would be helpful if it was working right now.
Well, yes. I'm also rapidly heading towards the age Douglas was when he died.
Oh, yeah.
Which is one because he died at 49. I'm
really 48. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the things. Like I think it was when I turned 43 or something. I realized that Steve Jobs was 43 when he stepped up on the stage and introduced the iMac.
Oh, really? Wow. Really?
Yeah. And that was one of those moments of like, oh, what have I done with my life?
Mind you, he was fired from Apple when he was 30. What were you like? We weren't that popular either.
Well, no, but I think I was in the audience for that iMac reveal because I was actually working on the iMac. I didn't know I was, but I was working on the iMac team at that point. So we got to go along to the Flint Center and see that demo. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking, well, he's a proper grown up. And then when I'm 43, I'm thinking, well, I'm not a proper grown up.
Yeah, you're just a 17-year-old in really old skin.
Yep.
All right. I think we'll do. What do you consider your greatest achievement?
Greatest achievement. I mean, managing to sell the same app for 29 years
PCalc,
is probably going to be up there just because it's kind of rare. Mostly staying sane. Yeah. I mean, I think it has to be PCalc because, I mean, between PCalc and DragThing, it's kind of like, that's been my income for, the majority of my life. And I've done pretty well out of it. So, I don't have kids. So, if I had kids, I would say, oh, of course the kids, but.
Name one. You'd have to name one PCalc or something, right?
Yeah, I think they would not appreciate that.
No, for sure. So we're just going to wrap up. So why don't you can you tell our listeners and watchers and viewers where they can find you and get in touch with you and what you're working on besides PCalc and Dice?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to find me, the best place is on Twitter, and that's James Thomson, and it's Thomson without a P. And PCalc.com generally has all the main apps that I'm working on now. TLA.systems is the company one, but that's really just links to PCalc. And yeah, what am I working on now? Well, I'm exploring all the new stuff in iOS 15 and macOS 12 and seeing what I can put together for the autumn. The autumn, which is a lot closer than I would like it to be. We're probably 6 weeks away.
Yeah, it's coming up.
And I wouldn't say that I've got anything particularly great to show for my summer work so far, but I feel that everybody should cut themselves a bit of slack because we're now in the second year of doing this, and I think everybody's emotionally and physically burnt out, and it's just do what you can.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to do the outro now. I normally have my voiceover guy do it, but we'll have to suffer through me doing it. So this has been another episode of the More Than Just Code podcast. If you want to find out more about the show, you can visit the More Than Just Code website at mtjc.fireside.fm. There you can find a summary and show notes of each episode where we list links to the apps and the code and the news that we mentioned on the show. If you like the podcast, please tell your friends and leave a comment on the website. If you can, please write a review on iTunes. Please recommend us on your favorite podcaster. And if you're watching on YouTube, click the little subscribe button right there. All of these things help others find out about the show, and we really appreciate your help getting the word out. We appreciate your help, James, as well.
Just to be on.
Yeah. And then we're also on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you use the hashtag AskMTJC, we may mention you on the show. Friends of the show can also join our podcast Slack channel. Once again, the podcast Twitter account is at MTJC_podcasts. All I'm going to say for now, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye. So thank you very much for being on the show.
No problem. Sorry for whatever technical glitches were going on there.
Well, that's, I'm surprised I just spoke to John Wilker in Colorado yesterday, and audio, we had issues, but, I'm surprised that we're actually able to speak to each other across continents, as it were, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. We couldn't have done this, 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, totally.
We'd be doing it on a modem, just typing back and forth. On the URL, waving at each other. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure. And yeah, let me know when it goes up.
I'll probably
promote it appropriately.
A couple of weeks, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, hopefully nothing bad happens to me before then.
Yeah. Well, knock on wood. Where's some wood?
Yeah.
Here's some wood. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, James.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.